It's the home stretch. Let's take a look at the last segment and last video for our module 15. We had previously mentioned something about labor, materials, and overhead as cost factors. So let's take a look at those costs and differentiate those, because this is going to be the kind of the heart and soul when we start doing some of this financial analysis. They may sound fairly obvious. Direct materials is the primary raw materials. If you're making a couch, you got to get the leather or vinyl. You got to get the wood framing together. You might have feet. You might have any kind of nails or whatever else going in, the materials that make the couch. You also have the labor. You have the wages earned by the production employees. And I'm saying production employees. We're not talking about the accounting labor, the legal department, the marketing folks. We're actually talking about producing the goods we're selling. And the wages associated with those are the direct labor variable costs to take those raw materials and convert them into a finished product. And then we have a manufacturing overhead allocation. And these are costs other than direct materials and direct labor, also known as indirect materials and indirect labor. This is the stuff that, the grease guns, the oil, the kind of things that may be used for equipment. And maybe we put nails in there as overhead because we're not going to track individual nails and materials. And maybe we're just doing the big things for materials. So the manufacturing overhead, it's usually allocated based on labor hours or labor dollars or possibly materials. But we have an allocation for overhead being assigned. I'm going to go over to the whiteboard and show you a little bit more about materials, labor, and overhead, because this is a basic concept that we want to make sure we have a pretty good handle on. Okay. So when we talk about direct materials, I'll call it DM here, direct labor, and overhead. Okay. So those three costs are going to make up what we are associating with the cost of whatever we're producing. And this is all variable costs from materials and labor. So we've got our variable cost, because for every unit we make, we're going to have additional costs associated with that. Overhead can be a combination. But the one thing I want to emphasize here is when we do an inventory evaluation, remember our accounting inventory, we had our beginning inventory, we added our purchases or production. Mostly purchases is what we were doing. And then we have goods available for sale. And then we have our ending inventory and cost of goods sold, one of two places. What goes into inventory, beginning and purchases, can be materials, but it can also be labor. You actually have labor on a balance sheet. It's stored in inventory. You have overhead on a balance sheet, stored in inventory. And when you have those costs being on the balance sheet, you start saying, wait a minute, it's on the balance sheet, I guess it's not on the income statement. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this later. But we might have some labor that gets transferred as what would have been expenses on the income statement, ending up in the balance sheet. And it doesn't get recognized until we sell the goods and they become cost of goods sold, and they move back to the income statement. So just want to take a short picture, give you a little sneak preview of where we're headed with that, and make sure you have a handle and understanding what we're doing when it comes to materials, labor, and overhead. Additionally, we have a cost hierarchy. We have unit level, batch level, product level, and facility level. And categorizing these costs are powerful and crucial to understanding the whole process and analyzing the cost structure of how we are going to be more efficient, more effective, and where we put our resources. So unit level is performed of each unit on our product. So if we're making 2-liter jugs of soda, what's going to happen? Well, we've got that unit level, that jug of soda. But then we got a batch, and we've got a batch of operation that it's performed on the products produced as we go. And so we might have a batch for bottling. So we have a batch that is actually popping the stuff in the bottles as we go. Product level activities to support the production of each different type of product. So me may be saying, here's our assembly line, here's our line for Mountain Dew, here's a line for Pepsi, Here's a line for Cherry Pepsi. So different products associated, and we have some changes to go with that. And finally, we have the facilities. We have the big picture. We have perform to maintain general manufacturing capabilities. We've got the facility that's heated. We've got the HVAC system. We've got the environment that is operational. So we make these things. And we select separate cost drivers at each level of cost. So these cost drivers are what we're analyzing and what we're doing and digging into. The cost hierarchies for merchandising and sales divisions used by all kinds of organizations, merchandising and sales parts of that. So customer classification, the unit, order level, customer level, facility level, those are categorized, those are analyzed, those are tracked. And then finally, we're looking at some segmentation. We're selling to distinct market segments. So we may be selling to wholesalers that distribute to convenience stores. We may be stocking the grocery stores, the supermarkets themselves. And we have market segment level activity, and then we have project level activity that's adapted as we go. So that's the nature of where we're headed, the nature of what we're doing, and the nature of what we're understanding. But again, I wanted to get back to these materials, labor, and overhead, where we're going to be spending a bunch of time doing a deeper dive and understanding the relationships, the cost relationships, and trying to figure out how to be most accurate in reflecting. Because if we kind of have 3 different products we're making and we don't allocate the overhead properly, we're going to distort the picture. And we're going to say, well, competitors can make stuff cheaper than we can, but well, we may be over allocating certain parts of the overhead to certain products. If we over allocate those, they're being under allocated somewhere else, and we may not be recouping our costs. We may not be effective. So that's as we go further into managerial accounting, we're going to have a deeper understanding of the bigger picture of how to track the information and make sense of the costs and how we can impact ultimate results and profitability of what we're doing. Thank you for investing your time. Thank you for sharing, and we'll look forward to moving forward. Take good care.